Hello everybody, всем привет. Today we're going to work on the adventure panel. So the adventure panel is supposed to appear when you click here. And it should be this menu where you would get the world map, the puzzle map, the ability to cast spells and dig for artifacts, and then you can exit that with the OK button. You can see I don't have it implemented here. What I do have a spellbook viewing setup here, so we can see the different spells in the spellbook, whether adventure, whatever. So we should be able to also generate the view of the spellbook from that screen as well. So that again, this A panel is in the base of heroes.agg, and so I dropped in also this, there was a file up here. So a lot of these menus, I believe that there's these .bin files for like buy building 7, buy building 6, etc. Buy book, bank box, army window, A panel. So I did well, let me show you here. So I dropped in the A panel .bin into just a basic hex editor here. And the basic hex editor, let's close this. So the basic hex editor shows me if there's ASCII text, it shows me what some of that is. So I can see that I have this apanel.icn. I know that there's 5 buttons. This is the background apanel BMP. There's 5 buttons. And then we see, so this is literally the text apanel.icn. We see this repeated over and over again. And then we see a couple of zeros, and then we see 8 and 9. Now, if we go to A panel, we see these buttons. 8 and 9 is the OK. 6 and 7 is dig. So let's see, what do we have after this A panel ICN? 6 and 7. So this bin file describes how this dialog box is laid out. And so what was happening with the original game is it would load in this file to construct this dialog box. And so rather than what I've been doing up till this point, all these dialog boxes, some of them look a little funny. We're in here, like some of this layout isn't quite perfect. It's okay, but this is me eyeballing it. Even this stuff, this is me eyeballing it on the hero screen and doing manual adjustments, calculating those values. And now I've realized like, oh, it's actually just in these .bin files in the root of the heroes.agg directory. So that's that's cool, but I kind of roughly know that it's telling you, okay, this is the ICN, these are the frames, and then are these the values of the offset in hex? Like what are the rest of the values? So I don't really know yet, but I'm gonna throw the AI at it and see if we can figure it out. So anyway, I want to rebuild this adventure panel menu today. It uses this A panel BMP as the background. It comes up in the center of the 640 by 480 screen. It's the 5th button above the hero mini panel and corresponds to this advanced button case 4. So there's 6 buttons, but they're numbered 0 through 5 because of zero-based indexing. So the 5th button is case 4. So when you press that, it's clicked, it brings up this menu. There's 5 buttons on this panel. They each have 2 frames of animation. I spell out, we have world map, puzzle map, cast adventure spell, dig for artifact, and OK. Give it the sprite width. There's a typo there, specs. All the buttons are 95 pixels wide. The larger buttons are 56 high. The OK button is 25 pixels high. Then I give it this approximate offset here, getting that approximately correct. Then I also have this A panel bin. This file is the root file of the heroes.agg file, or it's in that location. It's a binary file, has information about the A panel, I think. At file address 0030 is where it starts. That's where this BMP is spelled out. And there's 2 zeros, and then I see this 008, 009 at the end, which is the value for the OK button. I think the values after it might be the offsets of where those buttons go. Please analyze, compare to my estimates above. If we can reverse engineer this layout format, we might be able to match perfectly the layouts of all the menus of the game. And maybe we can reverse engineer this and write out a little spec, but highlight unknown values or guessed values to be compared with other window files. Then I explained that the cast adventure spell will bring up the spellbook like in the hero screen, which we did in a previous video. But this will be centered in the adventure window viewport, whereas the spellbook in the hero screen was centered in the hero screen, which takes up the full screen. Combat spells will not be visible, and the combat bookmark will not be visible. Only the adventure bookmark and exit will be visible. The exit button will return to the adventure screen. And then clicking on the dig for artifacts will cause the hero to attempt to dig for artifacts. Attempts, that was a little typo there. The game logic must check 3 things: that the ground is clear and diggable, and the ground has not been dug already. Does the hero have 100% movement points for the day if they have not moved and have full movement energy? If the hero is on a non-clear ground tile, then the message "try searching on clear ground" is displayed in the dialog box with an OK option. Clicking OK takes you back to the main adventure screen and exits all menus. Hero can dig for the artifacts, but only if they have that movement points. If they don't, then it says digging for artifacts requires a whole day. Try again tomorrow. Hero is able to dig. We play the dig sound. It's in the heroes.agg file root. This should be loaded in resource CPP or sound.h or wherever it's appropriate. I think it's actually in resources CPP, but sound.h controls it. And then I looked up the object 32007, which was the dig icon. So this is what gets placed over a tile when you dig there. And then nothing here, where could it be, is the dialog box. And then I specify what the ultimate artifact thing is, but I haven't actually reverse engineered what the possible locations are for the ultimate artifact. If it's randomly generated, I feel like it's got to be marked on the map somewhere as a possible location, and then the game like selects that somehow. So I need to do a little bit of reverse engineering and figure out how the ultimate artifact location is selected. That also means I need to figure out like how to generate the submap for the ultimate artifact. It's actually probably not that hard. It's probably just like a box drawn around the ultimate artifact, whichever, I guess there's sort of there's 4 tiles at the center of which it could be on. So figuring out which one of those is the center and then drawing it around. And then there's probably a palette shift on that as well. Anyway, I'm adding the spellbook ICN file, the hero screen, to show how to bring up the spellbook for the adventure spells. So it does some reading. It does a lot of commands looking at the, let's see, that wasn't it. I think it was the binary. It does 11, it runs all this stuff doing this binary analysis, and it kind of has these values figured out, and it kind of works. It kind of discovers this header, the button record. It says my position estimates were close, but had left, right swapped. Okay, whatever. So it gave me this new file, these new files, apanel.h, that has some dig logic. So apanel is actually having all the dig logic, which I think maybe should be in events, but I'm just going to leave it in here for now. I may move the dig logic somewhere else, but it is only kind of used in the adventure panel, so maybe it's okay there. I'll have to think about that some more. It adds a tile is clear ground function. These are some checks, and then it adds this level 2 type 7 L2 index 1 is basically just referring to this image that we've seen here, this whole image. I got a minor error that the dig sound, I didn't put the namespace HOM1. I pasted it after this, and so I missed that. That's all that error was. And then we got some errors here where the adventure panel wasn't disappearing. The adventure panel had a little bit of transparency, and no spells to cast is actually correct if you don't have any adventure spells. That's actually correct behavior. And then this, you can also again see here, there's some transparency issues, and it looks like these are slightly off as well. So I gave it a list of how to fix, or some verbal descriptions of what was wrong in these pictures. And I also gave it, let's see. We got that working sort of, but I gave it this spell win dot binary, which is the spellbook layout. And I also gave it layout because it said here that it didn't have the layout file, so it didn't have this layout.h, so it didn't know the center of the viewport. And so I said, you know, I didn't actually even mess with these files. I just said, here's the layout file. Let's simplify the signature so we don't have to pass in those values. Like, that's just weird. Why would we do that? And then I want to see if we can update the layout of the spellbook using the values here in spellwin, which I looked up, and it has this book.icn. So it had all of these. And then there's this, you see it says spell 0, spell 1, spell 2, spell 3. So the 4 spells that are displayed, it shows some kind of alignment information on those. So it's going to fix the layout of my spellbook potentially automatically if it can read those values. So I was experimenting with that, and it did a whole bunch of analysis, came up with proposed positions, gave me some patches. Why do we want to remove layout H from a panel? No good reason. It was unnecessary. So again, just calling on the AI to like stop making these silly, you know, weird, overly aggressive changes. And then I made the patch changes to game main CPP, but I like to just give it back to the AI and say, hey, double check that I did this correctly. And then I also gave it the spellbook. Instead of doing these spellbook patches up here, I said, can you just do those for me? And so it did the spellbook changes. There was one mistake where it had said cursor manager set instead of using cursor manager set cursor. So all I did, I just added these characters to the end of that command. That was all that was needed. So we had some other minor issues where one of the spellbook icons was missing, and some text rendering took a width component that didn't need to be in there. Then it just broke the spellbook display, and I was a little like, what the heck's going on here? And why don't we just have a look? I have the build saved here, so. So we didn't actually get any adventure spells, so this will be interesting. So no spells to cast. Okay, well, that's going on there. Okay, well, let's see what happens when we dig. So yeah, we can dig. That's cool. But yeah, we still are having this little transparency issue where some of the animations or the palette shifting is cutting through that image. So anyway, that was my previous build, and I think after it, well, I think it fixed the spellbook display. So let me show you what this final display looks like here. Oh, nope. It didn't quite fix that. No spells to cast. Can we dig? Yeah, we can dig on the castle entrance, which is, that's also not supposed to happen, but it did. So we're going to have to filter that a little bit in the future. Let's move. Okay, okay, we did get an adventure spell there, so that's good. So let's see. Okay, the spell book is coming up with that. And let's actually check the spellbook view here. So if you saw it before, the view resources was actually a little low on the book. These actually still look a little bit off to me, but they are working. And I don't actually like that this should be displayed here instead of there. That flipped it to be a cross. That's not the end of the world, but it's a minor quirk. So we still have a few bugs. I still don't quite know why this is. I mean, maybe it's possible that the adventure screen is that transparent. And maybe I have to lay it over a different structure like recruit or something. And I need to fix these buttons. So the button layout wasn't necessarily perfectly retrieved from the windows. So there's a little bit of work that has to be done to fix that. But we did get the basic functionality of digging, although it's able to dig on non-clear ground. And we did get the spellbook function kind of working. And, you know, it's possible that this is just transparent in some of those locations. So I may need to overlay this over recruit, for example, which is, let's see, I think it's recruit 0. No, why is that? Oh, that's bin. Oops. So if we overlay it over one of these panels, probably this one, then that might make it not transparent on some sprites. So that may be a solution that we have to come up with if it turns out that the A panel background is actually transparent in some of these values. We may have to modify that somehow. So yeah, some progress, still a few bugs, a few things to work out, but pretty fun to work on that one today.